My name is Ask Bjørlo. I'm a textile artist and I work within weaving and embroidery and other textile yarn-based techniques, and also sewing sculpturally. We are in Hønefoss in my house where I live and work. I've grown up here and with a life surrounded by artists. When I met these textile artists when I was a child, I was introduced to a world that resonated with me as a person, and I decided early on to become a textile artist. And since then I've just accumulated techniques and mastering them or trying a new one. Started with knitting and then it went on to tatting and different weird techniques. But I soon realized that the goal and what I really wanted to do was weaving. So I pursued weaving in Stockholm after finishing high school here in Norway. I started out with a school called Nyckelvikskolan, and I discovered a school called Handarbetets Vänner in Stockholm. And this is an old weaving school. It's a wonderful place, and I studied there for 3 years. So I have a textile degree there with focus on hand weaving and embroidery. Also, I ended it with a journeyman certificate in hand weaving. After HV, I went to Kawashima Textile School in Kyoto and studied there for a short while. And it was, of course, just immensely inspirational. I took my master's degree in fine arts at Oslo National Academy of Fine Arts at the textile department. And I ended with my degree there in summer of 2019. A typical studio day of mine is just being quiet, I think, and tuning in, sort of. Can't have a lot of music or sounds, so I go into my own self and then I pick a project. So either it's weaving or dyeing or lace making or embroidery. I like to work with different techniques at the same time, and I feel like if I work with weaving for a long time, I start missing embroidery and vice versa. I work with natural fibers as a base rule, just because I feel connected to them and I feel emotions through the natural fibers, specifically silk and linen and wool. These are my favorite fibers. And yeah, so I work with a lot of historical techniques, and each technique has its own story and its own place in the textile history. And the textile history is human history. So I find it very interesting to dive into the textile history books. And I love old textile books, and I don't know, it's really like a textile atmosphere when you discover it. So there are so many links, and each natural fiber has its own link or its use. In that way, even working with a technique is kind of conceptual, because I don't have to tell a whole story and always, because it's already there. I work with also mythological symbols And I've worked with both fairies and mermaids as a symbol. And these are traditional personifications of nature. So to me, that's kind of a simple symbol, but packed with meaning. I recently had my first solo exhibition held at OSL Contemporary in Oslo. And this was an exhibition where I showed woven tapestries and a sculptural installation, and also individual embroideries, both machine sewn and hand sewn. This exhibition was called Thread Lightly. The title Thread Lightly is both a comment to the word thread, because of the lightness of thread, but also my suggestion to everyone is to step lightly on the ground and just see where you go and think about it as a metaphor. Just trying to be a bit more careful with how you think about what you use of materials and, you know, your stamp on this world. And it had an overall theme of nature's fragility, I guess. It's obvious that I'm interested in Frida Hansen, because I've worked a lot with her already. And I discovered her during a show that I was invited to be part of an exhibition in Lillehammer Kunstmuseum called 1000 tråder. And in this exhibition they showed a few pieces of Frida Hansen, among others her weave called Havfruer som tenner månen, Mermaids Lighting the Moon, from 1895. And when I saw this, of course I had shivers in my back, because it was a huge tapestry of beautiful mermaids. So it resonated with me and kind of just stuck with me as a piece. But then a few years later, in 2017, I was also able to be part of an exhibition called Ode til en vaskeklut, Hymnen til en tiger, which was Norske Tekstilkunstneres Jubilee exhibition. So I made this piece called Mermen Turning on the Moon. And this is a sculptural piece with 17 little figurines of plant-dyed linen and sequins. And it depicts a scene where mermen are drawing men, human men, with eroticism and lust. They lock them down in the ocean and drown them. So it's kind of just a symbolic piece, and I think you can read it in many different ways. Standing in the line of the textile practitioners of the past, you feel both a responsibility to carry on the art, but also being in a period where you think, well, we live in a time where the future aspect is worrisome. So it's kind of easier to connect to the past and see the past as a never-ending lifeline. Because, well, it's our duty to make sure that the future is as long as the past. I'm currently working towards an exhibition at Soft Gallery in Oslo. I'm still, or currently, in the inspirational, or in the thinking phase. I don't know specifically what I'm doing at the moment, but I'm focusing on working with all of my beloved techniques right now, just to get started and free myself to think openly. So I am both weaving and sewing and dyeing, and yeah. But as I said, I feel that all the textile techniques, either if it's a monochrome piece or if it's a figurative piece, they all have their own conceptual base as being a textile. And we don't have a lack of textile in this world, but at the same time, art is very necessary as a part of our time, and we should never stop making art. We should just stop making so much clothes.